Shut up and sit down.
You go up, and then you go broke, and then to the course of the game.
My wife, Tom and Joe have a group chat.
I don't know, it was like a love at first sight.
If you don't get it right the first time, you'll come back again.
What a great opening to season 2. Texas Tomo.
Oh, wow, pleasure to be here. Have you done a really nice intro for it, do you think? Is there going to be a new season 2 intro is what the fans want to see, no?
I guess that's the best I could come up with.
Oskars told me off camera it's the best intro he's ever done, so just wait and see if that's true or not. But yeah.
You can vote in the comments below. How you been doing?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, very well. 2021 started good. Yeah, very happy. How about you?
Oh, same here. I'm excited for a new year. Hopefully there will be no COVID this year, and we will be able to meet a lot more people than only family. Although I like to see my family this year.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it will be fingers crossed. It can be like end of the year we'll be back to quote normal-ish. But yeah, in the meantime we'll just have to. I'm excited to see the guests of season 2 for the Oscar interviews as well. So we'll see who they got.
Me too. I have some new things, and I will start with the new thing. So how I will open interviews now will be I will say random names, maybe not so random, and you just say the first thing that pops into your mind.
Okay. This is new. I'm always the one that tests out the That's cool. All right, we'll go for it.
All right.
We're like a psychologist, all right?
Yeah, that's just like straight away answer. Poker.
Fun.
Twitch.
I can't say fun again, but that was the first thing that came to my mind. Fun, but
Coffee.
Coach.
Team 6x1.
Cool. It's a terrible answer. Pepsi. Terrible.
Money.
Nice to have.
Family.
Good.
Spin and go flash.
Lottery. That's not really fair, but it's my first thought.
All right, that was our quick
warm-up.
warm-up.
That's already panicking, by the way. I regret a lot of those answers. I did it wrong, didn't I? Can we do it again?
All right. We did a preview for interviews a while ago. It was in May last year.
Wow, yeah.
And I kind of asked you the question, how did you get into poker? But a lot of people didn't see that. So how did you get into poker?
Good question, Oskars. So I've always loved poker. I'm going to try and do a bit more of a brief answer rather than just repeat myself completely. But my dad taught me the rules, I think, when I was about 7 or 8. I remember teaching me, I think it was not Texas Hold'em. It would have been 5-card draw or something, and was teaching me that as just a card game. And I really liked it, even, just playing it a little bit then. And then I played it quite a lot when I was 16 and 17, with friends. So not online, but the movie James Bond, Casino Royale, came out. I think I mentioned that last time as well. And that was poker's cool. You know what I mean? That's my first word, wasn't it? But I really, and again, every time I played it, we played a game which was a 12 max tournament where we managed to get through about 6 hands in an evening. It took so long because everyone was chatting. But I just found it so fun. And then I went to university and joined the Poker Society. Really enjoyed that. In my 3rd year, I was president of the Poker Society and helped organise the tournaments and stuff. I did more of that things. And then went and did my masters. And after my masters, I took a gap year because I was already sort of semi-pro during my degree. But the idea was I'll take a gap year because I didn't take a gap year before. I'll go professional for a year, see how it goes. And it went very well. And that was 9 years ago now. 10 years ago now. 10 years ago, yeah, wow. And yeah, so I've been playing semi-pro, if you like, for about 13, 14 years, but then full pro 10 years. So yeah.
It was a lot shorter answer than last time.
I was trying to keep it shorter because I was going to go ramble about how I got into spins and stuff, but I think I said all that last time. So I'm happy to talk about how I got into spins, but I thought I'll keep it briefer and then, yeah.
No problem. Because I have a lot more questions than last time. Last time I had only 3.
I'll save my material for the new questions. We can talk a lot then. Yeah.
All right. Since you've been in poker now 19 years, uh, what would be your 3 pillars for success? Obviously, you are a successful poker player, not only playing poker for 10 years.
3 pillars for success. That's good because that wasn't a question that you asked for the other guys, and I didn't get asked that, and now I'm having to think. The first is obviously just like discipline, I think, and when I mean like discipline, it's so important that you go into poker, I think, with the right expectations and the right approach. And so I was always someone that was very cautious about like bankroll management and making sure I'm in the profitable games and all these kind of things where it seemed so important that we weren't you're not like at risk in terms of jeopardizing your poker career. Now obviously most people watching this will be staked and don't have that worry, but I do think it's really important nonetheless to like really think about playing in the right games at the right time, and playing in the most profitable games. So there's always that temptation to go and play higher stakes. I go and play higher stakes, and once you're there, you're like, well, I'm not moving down. You know, I'm 100 reg now. I'm not going to go play 50s or 25s. And I think it's really important to like just find where the games are softer and go play them. Like no one really makes that much money against regs in the long run playing any game in form of poker. There's too much rake in spins. There's too much rake in general in poker, in my opinion, a little bit. But if you're playing, even if you're playing like cash games or tournaments or anything, it's like if you find recreational players, you will make a load more money playing them. And if you're playing guys that have been professionals for 5 years, I don't think many people are going to beat rake unless the rake's like nothing in many games. So discipline, if you like, but discipline, I mean, in a kind of broader form where it's also about like playing in lower stakes, playing when it's appropriate, playing in the right games, playing high stakes when it's appropriate as well, of course. But like having that understanding about which games to play, and then of course like discipline in terms of like not getting too frustrated, not trying to chase your losses, not trying to let it become an all-encompassing thing where it affects your the rest of your life. You know what I mean? Because if your entire life happiness is dictated by what's happening in terms of your on-table poker results, your life is very, the emotional response you'll have will be very swingy along with the...
Yeah, you put your life on the variance.
Yes, exactly. Your life goes up and down with your card distribution, and that's a really tough way to live, I think, if your happiness is dictated by the EV that you made that day. And I experienced that's how I lived my life for a year, and at some point I went, I don't think this is sustainable to just get like completely fed up every time I have a losing day. And so I really tried hard to work at not letting that impact me. And but yeah, discipline, we'll go for that as number 1. The second, let's I'm gonna go for okay. I was talking to Wubsy a couple of days ago, and I came up with a new poker expression. So there's lots of poker expressions that we like to invent. I think Wubsy's got his cupped and capped and bag full of combos. Or so. I can't remember all of his expressions. And one of the things I am thinking about was the difference between poker knowledge and poker wisdom. So what I mean by that is that I think it's very easy there's lots of information out there in poker, right? Where when you look at the solvers, you understand some blocker impacts, you understand lots of different things. But I think sometimes we can have not a lot of professional players cannot have such a well-rounded approach in terms of their decision making in hands about what actually is generating EV for them in the hand. You know what I mean? Because there's this idea that like, oh well, I've got great blockers, so I better bluff off here or something. You know what I mean? And that's like you've taken some poker knowledge, but you've let that sort of sliver of poker knowledge dominate the entirety of your decision making, and you haven't used the multitude of other metrics that can help you, the other factors in the hand which can help you make a much more high EV decision. And I think that's a little bit of where I'm kind of trying to suggest that poker knowledge is different from poker wisdom, and it's understanding the bits you understanding the bits you don't understand, and trying to rank, if you like, the factors of a hand, the criteria on which you make a decision to help you make the most EV per decision, you know?
Yeah.
And of course, it sounds a little bit like I'm being anti-solver there, which in a way, of course, I am a little bit, but that's absolutely fundamental, you know, to many, many decisions that you make in poker. But I think sometimes when you're reviewing a recreational, it's almost the last thing I want to look at, because I think people, for example, let's talk about blockers as an example. This is the perfect bluff based on the blockers. And then if you're watching this and you're someone that finds yourself often saying that, well, this is perfect blockers, I got to do it. Talk to me about like the combinatorics that are actually involved in that situation. Talk to me about how much actually is this blocker impacting it, because especially in the sort of heads up limp pots where ranges are wide and there's lots of combinations already in the decision makings. Blockers where you block a straight draw or something could really impact the value range by knocking it down from say 100 to 90 combos or something, but he still has 90 combos of value. And so unless you're going to generate like his fold equity based on, if he's a recreational, based on just his mood, is going to be far more impactful in the decision making than the blockers will in that spot. And again, that's where I'm kind of coming from in terms of wisdom versus theory, where it's so important, I think, to not cap your win rate at a low ceiling if you're getting this wrong. And of course, we all get poker theory wrong all the time, but it's making sure that we utilize all the information that's out there for us. And so I think that's another pillar of success, if I could call it something like that, wisdom or understanding, if you like, which
the first example but that came into my mind that you often use is about blockers as well. If the timings are like so off for the guy, then blockers are much less relevant.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. If a guy snap jams the river, for example, and you think, well, I block a straight, block whatever, but that's a really good example, because often, let's say a percentage of the time, a snap river jam typically indicates a pre-made decision from an opponent, you know? So maybe they bet the turn, they snap jam river. It's like they had a pre-made decision, they were already going to jam the river, and the river card didn't affect that decision. They already had that. So what that happens means is, in that situation, you can exclude a lot of like the often hands that interact with whatever the river changed in terms of the board.
Let's not get into too much into.
Okay. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. Yeah.
I think that's a great example from
yes.
wisdom to knowledge.
Yes, and it's really tough because I think we all think we have poker wisdom, and I think in a nice way, none of us really do. And I'm not trying to preach here and be like, oh, look, I'm a wise poker. Like, I realize that I know nothing, you know what I mean? And I never will. I think it's often that talk about, poker's going to be solved and we're all going to be whatever. It's never going to be solved. It's far too advanced. Yeah. Maybe from the kind of heads up online, maybe the bots will become too disguised at 10 years in the future. Maybe they'll bring in some advanced AI software. But if you're talking about live poker, for example, that's never getting solved, you know what I mean? And I think
computer will be computer against computer is easy to be solved. Like now it's proven, but human, no.
Yes, there's too many factors affecting it, and so I think that's
third pillar.
Third pillar. What did I say? The first one I said wisdom. That was a bit, and then I said discipline, wisdom. What should we give for the third one? Discipline, wisdom. I think there's a certain amount of bravery also required. I mean, it depends a little bit on what your definitions of success are. But let's say for anybody becoming a poker professional, I think for all of us who've become poker professionals, that took a little bit of a leap of faith. Like, we had to have a certain amount of confidence. Maybe confidence is a better word than bravery, because I think that'll encapsulate more. So let's call it like the right level of confidence, I think, is a good example. You don't want to be overconfident, of course, and think you're, and then think you're God's gift to poker, and then refuse to study hard and all these sort of things. I think, on the other hand, you don't want to be underconfident, where you think, I can't play poker. You're too fragile in your confidence, and every time you go on a downswing, it will immediately impact your decision making, and you think, I can't play this anymore. Maybe the games are tough or anything. Over my poker history, I've definitely, I think, gravitated more towards underconfidence and overconfidence in a lot of situations, and so I think I was able to sort of use that, if you like, as a bit of fuel to try and get better at every single situation. And I think a lot of successful players often have that, hate losing or whatever, where they use the kind of adversity that is present within poker as fuel to get better, And every time, I remember like years ago, just like busting out of a live tournament once, and I was just like, God, I gotta get better at this game. You know what I mean? Like, I want to get better. And then I remember like talking to people and being like, well, let's study. And everyone was like, yeah, not that fussed. You know what I mean? They just didn't seem to be that interested. But I wanted to know more and all these sort of things. And I think, funny enough, like the last sort of few weeks, I've really kind of rediscovered that a little bit. Where like I really found my poker joy again, if you like, where I'm like really interested in all kind of different aspects. And so, but trying to bring that back to my discipline of success, let's call it the right level of confidence, where it's so important in game that if you're underconfident, it's very quickly sets off a spiral of low EV. You see people hit these sort of vicious spirals where they're underconfident. So let's say they bluff a bit less, against the population, where they say, these idiots are always calling me. And it's very much becomes that kind of siege mentality where it's like, it's me against the world. You know what I mean? I think we've all been historically guilty sometimes of feeling like that in poker, where you think it's me against the world. And in those situations, it's very often to think they always bluff, as though the opponents you play, are kind of a single entity. You know what I mean?
In a group.
In a group, but they're all on Skype, like being like, how can we get Ogrives? Yeah. But of course, it's not the case. And then the problem is, if you stop treating them as individuals, you stop missing all the spots you have to bluff, to check raise, to take thin spots, to delay. Like when you look at some of the delaying spots we should be taking, it's close to any 2 cards. When you take a look at some of the probing spots we should be taking, it's close to any 2 cards. When you look at some of the raising versus probes, raising versus delays, it's close to any 2 cards. The EV out there is in so many situations against so many, both regs and recreationals. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you start autopiloting, because you lose a little bit of that confidence to take those profitable situations, because you think, I've got this wrong, I'm not so sure, I don't want to make a hero call, etc., etc. That has such a profound impact in terms of your win rate. And so I think having that stable confidence is so vital to allow you to play in your A game, and playing your A game really helps you just build that stable confidence. So I'll give that as a pillar of success. So what have I got? Discipline, wisdom, confidence. The 3 pillars of success, ladies and gentlemen.
Perfect. I think it's perfect, right? All right. You kind of mentioned a lot of not so easy times in your poker career, so I will ask you the biggest challenge within your poker career.
There's definitely been a few times pre-stable things were a lot of struggles. So when things were started off very well, actually. I never really had big problems when I first deposited or first started playing. And the biggest challenge initially I had was I won a big tournament when I was 22. So I won a Sunday warm-up on .fr for like 22k. And I was very fortunate, obviously, to do that. This was after playing already a few years of like 180 mans and sit and goes and all kinds of games. And I used that as a deposit to buy a house. And so I was very fortunate to do that as well. The problem was I didn't really think about it. I had a, okay-ish bankroll, which then overnight that was gone because it was the deposit. And so happy days, I've bought a house, but like sad times, I've now got $1,000 left in my stars account where that's my new bankroll, and now I've got a mortgage to pay, and I was like, shit. And so I immediately had to move. Like previously I was playing $100 MTTs, and I was playing some $50 sit and goes, and I was playing some high stake $60 sit and goes, I think it was. Played some high stake stuff, played some heads up, played lots of different games, and suddenly I was back to playing $3.50 games, you know what I mean? Like really trying to rebuild a bankroll with the prospect of taking out about £1,000 a month, $1,000 a month, let's call it, a month for mortgage payments kind of thing. And that was a real struggle for like 2 or 3 years, just really grinding on an absolute bowl of a bankroll. And then like you'd have a month where you'd make $1,500 and then take 1,000 out and you got $500 profit for that month for your bankroll. And then the next month you'd make $600 and suddenly your profit's like gone because now you're only at $100. And I just plateaued for so long, and I was playing and playing and playing these low stakes, playing really like my win rates were great. But it just, it was really, really low. And that's actually, it was in that situation where I moved into spins a little bit, because spins were, I was playing 9 mans, playing $15. I built my roll a little bit. So I was playing $15 and $30 9-man sit and goes. And it was 2014 September, and a spin and goes popped up, and I thought, oh, these will be fun. I played a $1 game. I reviewed there's somewhere on the Vimeo site is my first ever spin and go, which I reviewed, and wow, I played like a fish. But it's
that was 7 years ago.
It was 7 years ago. It's amazing. Like I thought I was at least solid, but no, it's like I've kings 7 big blinds min raise, sure, and like I just fold jack 6 off or something for like 11, because like that's a bad hand. I should fold that heads up. So I moved into that, and then the biggest challenge, I'd say, the biggest moment when I thought this is really tough was early 2016. I moved up to 30s the first time. Ran absolute great in EV. So I was at first 3K games. I had 65 chip EV, fantastic. Was 200 buy-ins below EV or something. Like it was the worst I'd ever run in terms of the difference. I wasn't on an EV deal. I was on my own bankroll. I had to withdraw money every month, and for 2 months I lost like $1,500 a month. Like despite in theory making about 3K a month, and so that was the toughest part in terms of the difference there. And so I had to move back down to the 15s, and then I had to move back down to the 7s, which was really, really tough. And then my toilet broke, and I was renting a room out, so I had to get it fixed straight away. And then I rang an emergency plumber, and he ripped me off, and he charged me 650 quid, and he changed one part, and then the toilet like flooded the next day, and there was water coming through the ceiling, and I had to like, because I'm renting the room, so I had to like get an emergency decorator out and stuff like that, and it was all a complete nightmare. And then I remember my gran died as well, like later that month, and bless her, the last thing she did was she gave me some money for the toilet, and I was like, that's so sweet, but like I couldn't even tell how much it was because it was too much, like 600 quid. So I told her it was 200, and she wrote me a little check, and she's like, oh, it's for the toilet. I was like, that's very sweet. But that was a real tough point. And then I had no money. Like I was completely broke basically, despite owning a house that I was paying them, and I told this story quite often, but like I was trying to basically move to living off about £15 a week off food. Like that's none of these. There was no option to afford glass bottles. I was looking at buying cheaper meat, and then I looked at beef heart, right? So I used to buy hearts because they're really cheap, right? And you get a lot of meat for that. And then I'm like, yeah, have a lot of heart for buying the heart, but and that was going to be my new steak. And I was looking up recipes, thinking I could do this, I could do this, but it was a really difficult time. And
obviously now it sounds fun and a funny story.
Yeah.
But during that time it wasn't fun at all.
In a way, like I'm really happy I went through that, because it really did give me an appreciation for just how tough it is when you've got no money, where like everything was a struggle. Buying clothes was a struggle, like trying to go off eBay, get the cheap clothes, everything reduced to clear, whatever you could do. Tesco value, try and walk to the Tesco's, and like I was really, and part of that was because I was really trying to keep the dream alive. Now with hindsight, I should have just joined a stable 2 years earlier, and it would have been absolutely fine, because I was trying to do it all on my own, which was a big error. But it was sort of a last roll of the dice. So I gave myself a year in 2017 or 16 or whatever it was, and that's when I joined Evolve, and I wrote applications to lots of places. I don't think I saw Team 601. I don't know. There was a lack of advertising, I think, at the time, 601, because I remember I wrote.
I think 601 didn't take a lot of state guys. Or maybe not. I don't know.
They missed out, didn't they? But I wrote an application.
Jack, clear things up in the comment section.
I wrote an application to Evolve. I wrote an application to Smart Spin. I wrote an application to one other stable, who's maybe even Coffee stable or something, the computer specialist stable, and. I wrote, I probably, compared to that, we know, having looked through applications, I wrote a really long essay and all this stuff, and I went in for an interview, and I was like, I've got to be prepared, and I was really excited, and then the guy knew me, he really wasn't bothered. Like, within a second, he was like, yeah, you're in, don't worry, like, but I was talking about all the stuff I could try and bring and offer, and all these things I've been working on, all sorts of stuff like that. But that, like, changed, if you like, my poker career trajectory, because I was so overqualified for the stakes I was playing, even I think for the 30s I was playing, that was really the fun. That was why I was able to rise up the stakes so quickly, because I was a 15s grinder that was already closer to being a 100s grinder.
I was your coach, right?
Oskars was my coach, and I used to annoy him by asking lots of complicated questions, right? Like every time. It was me, you, Greg, and Olga. I remember these days, and there's a certain joy I have about them. You know what I mean? Like, it just like in my poker infancy, where like. Cog Dis, for example, and he was doing his sessions like 1 a.m, and I have this distinct memory of like going to make a porridge. That's another thing, by the way. If you haven't got a lot of money, porridge is very nutritious and cheap. So I used to make this big bowl of porridge as like one of my meals, because it was like 20p. I love porridge as well. I still eat porridge, but and then like make a little Tesco Valley coffee and a decaf coffee, and I had a porridge, and I quite enjoyed it. You know what I mean? And you remember I used to have my bed in this room. So for those of you who are not aware, or I don't think you've ever seen, but 3 years ago, this used to be my bedroom. I used to work in here, I used to sleep in here, I used to eat in here. Everything was in here for like 4 years of my life. This little 6 foot by 6 foot kind of thing.
In your own house, you had one little room.
In my own house, it's now a 4-bedroom because I did the loft, but there's 2 other bigger rooms, but I was renting those out to like help me for the income. And so this was again part of the grind to making sure I can make poker a success. So I really did, when I think about it, actually, I kind of take it for granted, but I really did like make a lot of sacrifices. Shout out to Jack's Get Mega Rich. But it was the sacrifice. Maybe it's not mega rich, but mega successful. I don't know if you want to call it that, but yeah, there were definitely tough times you have to go through, and it wasn't all smooth sailing. But I think I like to think I'm a more empathetic person. I like to think I'm more appreciative of other people's challenges, and I think as a coach, understanding a lot of that struggle, which I understand that guys who are in a lot of makeup, for example, the idea of like, well, I'm not going to make money for a while, that's really tough. I understand that for sure. And that let's say vulnerability that I'm fortunate enough now not to really have, where if I don't make money at poker, okay, fine. But at the time it was like, that adds a lot of pressure, you know what I mean? So I think I have a good appreciation for that, which I think helps the coaching as well, hopefully. But yeah, those were the tougher times, yeah.
Okay, now let's move to more fun times.
Okay.
There were poker struggles, there were poker grind, there were poker coaching, which is still going. But now the new thing in your life is poker Twitch.
Poker Twitch, yes.
Tell us how you got into it and what's the best thing about Twitch.
So the funny thing about Poker Twitch is that actually pre-joining Evolve, I thought about setting up a poker Twitch channel. Like 2016 really would have been an early setter, early trendsetter. And I talked to one of my poker mates and I said, I think we should make a channel like that. I was going to do it in collaboration with a guy outside of online poker world, like one of my real life mates. Mm-hmm. And I said, we could do a poker show, and it would have been basically the kind of Tom and Oscar show, but Tom and Dave. But
doesn't sound that good.
No, not as good. It wasn't as good. Oscars it's much better than Dave's Oscars. It doesn't work. But we didn't work. It didn't work out in the end, and then Twitch kind of took a backseat, and we sort of forgot about that. And then I think back early in Jack had been Twitch streaming for a bit, like a couple of years ago. I used to watch a lot of Jack's Twitch streams. I used to love watching Twitch streams like all the time, and anyone doing spins. And I think there wasn't that much of a spin Twitch streamers about, but like Courtney B's been doing it for a long time. I think there's a YouTube video of Courtney B getting coaching from Doug Polk, you know what I mean, like in Spin and Goes, which is kind of fun to watch, and all this sort of stuff. But I always liked Twitch a lot, and I always felt like I'm quite good at talking. I don't know if anybody can notice this, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm quite good at talking just to myself. Oskars doesn't have to say too much during his interview here. I will happily talk a lot anyway, which I think is quite a good attribute to have.
In the last kind of interview, you mentioned being a native speaker is one of your biggest strengths and why you became successful.
It helps a lot for sure. Sorry, I'm going to open all this. Shout out to Nick. But for sure, I mean, that really helps, the ability that I can just ramble away and not have to worry about like thinking, how am I going to say this in Latvian or something or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I do think I'm naturally, like, when I was young, I did quite a lot of panto, and I don't know if people know what panto is, but panto's
I don't.
It's like a play for the village, if you like. And so when I was 16, and this would make fantastic halftime material if anyone's ever able to find this image, I was the dame, and the dame is like this, you dress as a big woman and you sort of sing and you're completely over exaggerated, and I was singing solos to like the kind of crowds and all the stuff. And I think I've always been a bit of a showman, I mean, I've always quite enjoyed that aspect of life, if you like, and Twitch obviously gives you a good platform to be able to do those sort of silly stuff. So yeah, I really enjoyed Twitch. It's good to get me grinding initially, which I was also very happy about. My results on Twitch were fantastic. Like when I started playing on Party, my Twitch EV I think was about like 70 plus for the first 350 games or so. It was 400 games or whatever it was. And so yeah, I was really pleased with that as well. And especially during lockdown, actually, it's been a real nice kind of thing to be able to do, where like I really enjoy it, and you do kind of like, it's a lot of social interaction, which I think a lot of people as poker players, and especially, I can speak from personal experience. Like when I was on my own grinding spins all day outside of stable, it's quite an isolating job you're doing. You know what I mean? And you have a housemate that you chat to, and then he'll say, "Oh, how's your EV?" And he's being polite, but he doesn't know what's going on. But Twitch is like you're super sociable, and guys can chat, and I hope it's an area where people can just chill out a little bit, you know what I mean, and sort of forget about if they've had a tough day or something. They can watch some idiot talk too much, and then watch a funny halftime video where Wubsy's rapping, and whatever, we Photoshop some faces onto people. You know what I mean? I like to think it's a little bit of a hangout environment, if you like.
Talking about halftime shows. Next question is about talking halftime shows.